I am obviously a new YouTuber, new to this whole thing, so bear with me. A little bit of background about me. I am in the process of flight training. I am in the very early stages of ground school. My aunt has purchased for me the King School's private pilot get it all kit, so allow me to embarrass myself on this video. Today, actually this weekend, I'm going on a trip to Wisconsin Dells, so I figured right before the trip, I'm going to take an airplane up to Wisconsin. And what better airplane to do that in than a Cherokee 180? Here we have AccuSims, A2A Simulations, Cherokee 180. I have the wheel fairing kit on there, as well as the flap gap seals and a couple extra aerodynamic aids that will help us get a little higher cruise speed on this flight. Also make us a little more fuel efficient and stuff. I want to say we're going to be taking 17 gallons. 17 gallons of fuel with us. 19 gallons of fuel with us per tank, about 75% on the fuel load. We've got two passengers. One of them would be me, the pilot. The other one will simulate as my woman, the woman in charge. So we have that weight and everything in there. We've got about 45 pounds of baggage. Since it's just the two of us, no need to have much more. It's only a weekend trip, so to speak. So a couple days worth of clothes, you know, the usual stuff. Nothing too heavy. Probably 45 pounds is a little on the heavy side, actually, but we'll leave it at 45 pounds because we would take some extra items with us for an airplane flight, such as maybe a flashlight, you know, a little first aid kit, stuff like this. Anyway, back to the airplane. We're going to be flying in 3572 Tango. Again, this is the A2A Cherokee 180. Um, and yeah, we're going to be practicing pilotage and dead reckoning on this flight. What I mean by that is we're going to be flying VFR. VOR to VOR. Our flight plan today is from Charlie 15 Airport, located in Pekin, Illinois, technically South Pekin, Illinois, to Kilo Delta Lima Lima, the airport that we will be flying to right outside Wisconsin Dells. Our VOR path today is going to be Papa India Alpha to Bravo Delta Foxtrot to Papa Lima Lima to Juliet Victor Lima to Mike Sierra November to Delta Lima Lima. I have the radio frequencies for that and the courses wrote down on a pad of paper, so we'll see how this goes. Let's start with the pre-flight, the walk around. We need to start in the cabin, so we need to release the control wheel. Lock, remove the belt there. We're going to turn on the master switch after it's like crazy. I could just remove the yokes from the airplane, but in real life we'd be able to move our head and it wouldn't be on this one pivot point. We'd be able to look around the yoke in real life. So for now we're just going to turn it off. I'm going to turn the master switch on. We're going to check the fuel gauges. And they are showing approximately 3/4 of a tank, just under 20 gallons, 19 gallons, which is good. That matches our hangar information, our weight and balance information that we put in. I'm going to turn the master switch off now because that's all we needed to check. Going to confirm the ignition is off, and the flaps in this airplane are not hydraulic driven, they're manual, so we do not need power going to the airplane to lower the flaps. So that's what I just did. I just lowered the flaps. Let's go ahead and get on out of the aircraft here. We are looking at the wing. We're going to make sure that our flaps are sturdy, and we're going to check the aileron and flap linkages here. Correction, we are checking the flap linkages here. Here we are checking the aileron linkages and hinges to make sure they are all in good order, so that our ailerons move. Continuing around the airplane, we're going to remove the tie down right here. We are going to remove the wheel chock, and we're going to check the tire for proper inflation. Because this is an AccuSim aircraft, that is a necessity. Going to take a fuel sample out of the wing, make sure there's no contaminants. That looks good. We're going to visually check the fuel tank to ensure approximately 19 gallons is in it. Moving back around, we'll check the oil dipstick to make sure we have plenty of good, and that is clean oil as well. Checking the front tire for proper inflation, any damage to the fairing or the strut here. And that all looks good. We're going to check for symmetry here, minus our intake port. Checking for symmetry, make sure there's no dents, bruises, nicks. Here's where we would feel the propeller to make sure, we don't have any nicks or grooves in the propeller, so that's good. We're just going to click this to make sure there's nothing blocking our engine intake here, as A2A does model stuff like this. Another fuel sample from right underneath the nose of the aircraft. This would be fuel that is getting ready to go into the engine, of course. Make sure there's no contaminants there, and that looks good. Now we are on to the left wing fuel tank. We just checked the right, and we want to confirm approximately the same amount of fuel, and that does look good. I did look at this tab here on the last one to help gauge how much fuel is in that particular tank, and that does look fine. Another fuel sample for the left wing tank, and that fuel sample looks fantastic. I'm going to remove the wheel chock there, and again check this tire for proper inflation, no damage to the fairings or anything like that. And that looks good. Remove the tie down here. Check the stall horn there. That moves, so that's what we want. We don't want that to be stuck, or else we won't know if we're stalling until we fall out of the sky, and that's no good. We want to know we're stalling when we're stalling. I did not turn the pitot heat on, so this is going to display cold, which is why the circle here is blue. And we want to make sure that our static port and pitot holes, so our static port hole is right there. I hope you guys can see that in stream. And our pitot tube hole is right there. Again, I hope you guys can see that in stream. Moving on to the left wing aileron, we want to make sure, just like with the right one, the linkages and hinges are proper. And they do look in good condition. We're going to wiggle the flaps, make sure there's not too much play. There is going to be a little bit of play, but we do not want too much. And these 4 linkages here resemble good condition. Onto the tail of the aircraft. Now this is what they call a stabilator. So the whole rear of the aircraft, elevator so to speak, that whole thing moves there. We want to remove the tie down. We want to check all of the hinges on this rear tab here. We want to check all those hinges out to make sure they're all in good condition. We're going to check our linkages for the stabilator, I believe is what it's called, horizontal stabilator. And we're going to wiggle that tab to make sure there's not too much play in that. If there's too much play, we would have to ground the aircraft and get it maintained. We want to ensure that our baggage door is locked and secured. I always click that twice if the key does do its little rotation thing like you saw at the beginning. I always click that twice so that the key wiggles back and forth. I can confirm that that's locked. That has completed our pre-flight check. The aircraft is in proper condition to fly. So now what we need to do is we need to get the airplane pushed back a little bit. We do not want to start it there. I do not know. This aircraft does not have towing capabilities built in. Some of A2A's aircraft do. This particular aircraft does not, so we're going to have to use the magic of simulation and just use key commands to push us back here. Alright. Go ahead and stop her right here. We'll go ahead and pull this shut. Notice I have not latched the door. The door is still cracked. This is for cooling purposes on the ground. I will also open this little window here to get some cooling into the aircraft. Before takeoff, we will latch this door and ensure that it is closed and locked. Okay, so let's pull up our checklist. As a new pilot, I'm adamant about the checklists. I've done some research and found out that that is a common mistake in new pilots, is not following the checklist. So we need to follow the checklist here. We're going to prime the engine 1 to 3 strokes before starting. We're going to lean on the ground to avoid fouling the plugs, and that reminds me, let's go ahead and hop in our hangar real fast. And we have fine wire plugs in. Now we are able to change these out to massive. Massive spark plugs are more prone to fouling. So I have the fine wire in just to aid in that aspect of the simulation. I have not learned the proper magneto clearing procedure to clear that particular magneto. I haven't learned that yet, and once I do, I will make necessary adjustments to practice said things. So back to the checklist. We're going to check the oil temperature before run up. We're going to idle under 1,000 RPMs with a cold engine. Stall speed, max flap extension speed, approach speed, max crosswind are all for reference here. So upon entering the cabin, we have checked the weight and balance, and I can pull this up and show you guys what that looks like. We got 45 pounds of baggage in the back, 2 passengers, fuel, and our oil. We can see our total weight and our payload in pounds. Close and secure the cabin door. We are going to leave that cracked until we get out towards the runway. Again, for cooling purposes, this is something I have seen done in real life. Maybe not necessarily in a Cherokee, but in other low-wing aircraft that I have flown in and got to be around. That is something the pilots did talk about, was cracking the door until getting to the runway. Our controls. Let's get our yoke up here. Our controls seem to be in proper condition. Our ignition and avionics switches are off. Here's our avionics, radio master. Ignition switch is off. We're going to turn the master switch on. We'll check the fuel quantity again. The fuel selector will select to the fullest tank. We'll retract the flaps, and set the elevator trim, turn the beacon on, and then we'll be ready for startup and taxi. So let's go ahead and get the master switch on. I'm going to pop the rotating beacon on right now, just to let other aircraft or pilots in the vicinity know we are getting ready to start our aircraft. We can see our rotating beacon right here on the top of the vertical vertical stabilizer. Good Lord, that's a tongue twister. So there's our rotating beacon. It's on, ready to go. Back to the checklist. Let's get the flaps up. Visually check both sides are symmetrical. Our avionics is confirmed in the off position. Fuel selector, what is our fullest tank? Looks like they are about the same. Maybe the right's got a little more in it, so we'll select the right tank. Alright, flaps have been extended and then retracted already. Elevator trim is set for takeoff, which is in the neutral position. I might actually do a little bit of nose down trim, just because we have some weight in the back of the airplane. I don't want it to be too tail heavy on takeoff. I would like to avoid touching the stall horn on takeoff, as I have done in the past with this airplane. We've got a rotating beacon on. On to the next. Our parking brake is set. Our carb heat is off. Our fuel selector is in the fullest tank. We can recheck the gauge here to confirm that, and it is indeed on the right tank. Our master switch is already on. Our electric fuel pump test, we just want to turn this on. Make sure we got some fuel pressure, and turn it off. I'm going to prime probably the full 3 strokes. And we're going to lock that. Our mixture, we are going to smoothly increase to rich, just like that. We are going to crack the throttle. Sorry, the throttle got jumpy. It usually does that when I first put throttle input in. My joystick is $35 and cheap. I need to buy a new one. Alright, mixture's rich, throttle's cracked. Clear prop. I'm going to put the ignition on both, and we're going to engage the starter. A little bit of throttle. And slowly but surely the airplane fires up. We want to keep an eye on that RPM. We do not want to exceed 1,000 RPMs before our oil temperature comes alive. The engine is cool. Our oil pressure is in the green as the oil warms up. This needle will settle more. We just do not want it to go past that red mark right there. And our oil pressure is okay. Our amp meter is reading positive amperage, so we know our alternator is functioning properly. Our navigation lights are now on. Confirm this. Got the green on that side. As the engine warms up, our engine RPM is going to increase. Sorry, got a text message here. As our engine warms up, our engine RPM is going to increase. We will need to monitor that, as we do not want to exceed 1,000 RPMs yet. And we are going to meter out a little bit to avoid fouling the plugs now that our start procedure is complete. Now that we've got some airflow moving, we can close this, and our door here, which is still cracked, remember, will give us ample cooling with that propeller throwing wind all over us now. We can see in our GPS here our line to help us. So we'll be flying VOR to VOR using GPS where need be. We're going to be using nav1 for our flight here. And the first VOR we're going to go to is 115.2 on the frequency, and we will want to fly a course of 337 to get there. We can see our needle here is moving as I move this. That is good. That's what we want. We know we're picking up that VOR already, so. Our oil temperature is now live. As mentioned before, that fuel pressure is starting to drop as our engine temperature comes up. As the oil warms up, it becomes thinner. Ensure that the starter's not engaged anymore. Alright, let's go ahead and tell traffic in the area that are going to take off. Where is the windsock? I know what we can do. 340 at 3 knots, okay.
Charlie 15 traffic, Piper November 3572 Tango is taxiing to runway 27.
Disengage the
Runway
brakes.
Quebec Bravo traffic, Beach November 9277 Juliet is 4 miles southwest, 2,600 inbound to land, runway 27.
A little bit of throttle to get the airplane going, and we'll kick her off to the right here. Airplane is really easy to taxi on the ground. It's quite nimble on the taxiways, actually. Very nice turn radius on this aircraft. It's quite wonderful to taxi. Our next VOR, which shortly after we take off, will intercept the PIA VOR. Our next Bravo Delta Foxtrot. And I am going to pre-tune that
Mike Quebec Bravo traffic, Beach November 90277 Juliet is on downwind runway 27.
And that guy is not around our airport. Increase the mixture first, of course, before we start this. We're going to want to throttle up to 2,000 RPMs, check both mags with 125 RPM max drop. We're going to check the carb heat at 2,000 RPMs.
Quebec Bravo traffic, Beach November 90277 Juliet is on base runway 27.
Thank you. We're going to check the carb heat to make sure the engine RPMs drop respectively, and at 2,000 RPMs we're going to do a quick run through of all of our engine instrumentation to make sure all that's in the green and looks good, and then we'll be ready for takeoff. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to secure the door. So that door is now locked. We cannot open it. I will put on my headset to quiet up the aircraft noise a little bit, and let's start the magneto check. So throttled 2,000 RPMs.
Mike Quebec Bravo traffic, Beach November 90277 Juliet is on final runway 27 to land.
Just under 100 RPM drop, so that's good. And then the right mag at about 100 RPM drop, and that is okay. We're going to pull carb heat all the way out and ensure the engine RPM drops, which it did. That's good. Put that back in and run through the instruments here. We got a positive ammeter. Fuel gauges are looking good. Oil pressure's in the green. Fuel pressure's in the green. Oil temperature's in the green. That's all good. All right. Go ahead and throttle the airplane down here. I want to check the idle of the aircraft. I'm going to bring her down. Idle seems to be good. Let's tell Pekin Traffic we are taking off, and we're going to be departing towards
traffic,
the north.
Piper November 3572 Tango, taking off runway 27, departure to the north.
Strobe landing lights on because we are entering an active runway here. Clear left, clear right. Holy cow. Alright guys, here we go. Let's track the center line of the runway, not the right side. Tap the brakes to just get them to stop spinning. And we're going to ride on up there. We are 500 feet AGL. We make a 45-degree bank to the right here to leave not a whole heck of a lot of turbulence, so we'll see what happens when we get up to altitude here. Right now I am going to start my turn to intercept my VOR as we're climbing up to approximately 5,500 feet for VFR flight operation. Let's talk about the add-ons I'm using. This probably doesn't look like default prepared 3D. I am using P3D V4 version 4. This is the academic license. I am using Active Sky for the weather, which is why I keep commenting about how smooth it is. It's a very smooth day. We've got the complete Orbix overhaul. I'm using Orbix Global, OpenLC North America, and Vector. And of course, I've already talked about the aircraft. We are flying in an AccuSim aircraft today. Going to start to level off. As our speed increases, we'll be able to relax that rudder a little bit. Let's descend a little bit here. We're almost 500 feet above our chosen altitude. We're going to end up cruising the airplane out about 2,400 RPM. I'd like to do a little quick cruise, you know, a little speedy cruise here in this aircraft. To be right around 120 knots. That's what I have planned for the cruise speed of this flight anyway. A little bit of wind. That's nothing too major though. Alright, just to kind of get an idea here of what's going to happen. We are about to cross the PIA VOR when this little white triangle up at the top here goes to the bottom. We will retune our frequency and we will start to intercept the next VOR. And that is going to be on a course of 014 degrees, so almost straight north. Now that we're in cruise configuration, we can lean the airplane out a little bit. Because we are above 3,000 feet. We're getting close to our VOR, so it's going to say we're really off course. If we just hold the heading we had, we should cross it here very shortly. Looks like we are right above it right now, which is why that flag went red. And here in just a moment, there it goes. I'm going to go ahead and make my turn here up to the north. Just a nice, subtle, easy turn there. Always trimming the airplane here to keep her in a level attitude. Always trimming it. Let's tune to the Bradford VOR. And there's that. Looks like we have intercepted that. We want course 014 degrees. Okay. Good old pilotage and dead reckoning on this flight, with some help from the GPS if need be. I want to keep it right around 5,500 feet, 5,500 feet indicated. We will shortly tell Peoria we're leaving their airspace and we'll continue VFR north past Chicago, and then we will have arrived. Check the fuel gauge here. I'm going to go ahead and switch this to the left tank and start pulling fuel out of the left. I'm happy with this cruise configuration here, 2,300 RPMs. Looks like it's giving us a stable 120 knot indicated airspeed, so we're going to keep her right where she's at. I'm going to try to avoid using the autopilot on this flight. I'd really like to fly it manually because the flight sim is very good at teaching you how to press the buttons in the aircraft, but it's too easy to just set autopilot and forget about it. Looks like we're at a thermal here or something. Too easy to just set the autopilot and forget about it, so I'd like to fly this manually. We are slightly turned to the right of our heading select as I am trying to intercept my VOR course up to Bradford, or Bravo Delta Foxtrot is the identifier for that. Down a little bit here. I think I hit a thermal back there, which is why the airspeed and all that increased. No big deal. correct for it. And we're heading up north to Wisconsin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching if you're here. I appreciate it. Any feedback is welcome in the comments section, good or bad. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. I will be bringing more to you guys. I just think it's enjoyable. I like sharing my experiences on Prepared. I've had some memorable experiences. It's been pretty fun. Get out of these thermals soon. We are in smooth air, so it would be safe for us to go into the yellow arc of our airspeed indicator. That is not a particular concern of mine right now. Looks like we just dropped out of the thermal. If you were watching the vertical speed indicator back there, you would have noticed when that happened. Pull back here, trim the airplane out accordingly. So the airplane should start to slow back down and settle back down to its original 120 knot cruise speed. Keep an eye on our heading indicator and our magnetic compass just to make sure our gyroscopic precession doesn't get too bad. We will have to keep an eye on that throughout the flight as we go. Won't be a big deal. We just kind of line it up with our magnetic compass once we're, if we're in smooth air, flying straight and level so that there are no other variables involved. It's a really easy plane to fly once you've got it trimmed and all that. We just kind of coax it in the direction we want her to go, and she does it for us. So, very simple airplane to fly. It's actually 100 times easier to start than the A2A Cessna 172, as I have flooded that airplane many times trying to start it. It's quite embarrassing, actually. Trim the airplane out. Cross-reference our gauges, make sure they're all in the green, nothing's reading abnormal. All that over there looks good, so What's this? Close that window. That was our weather request to get the weather report of Peoria. In real life, we would have been able to look at a windsock and determine what runway we would have taken off from, but unfortunately I didn't see one back there, so we had to use a bit of simulation tactics to determine what runway was best. A little bit of turbulence, it looks like, a little bit of some wind or something. Got the airplane bouncing around a little bit. We just correct for very subtle movements in this airplane. She's very nimble, very easy to fly, very fun to fly. One of the more common trainer aircraft out there. Looks like we're dropping a little below our altitude here, and we have cleared the Delta airspace, so we're going to let Peoria
Tower. Piper 7-2 Tango is clear of the Peoria Tower airspace. Piper 7-2 Tango, Peoria Tower, frequency change approved.
I also forgot to turn my transponder on, so my mistake. I told you I was going to embarrass myself. I'm just glad I forgot to lock the door, you know? Glad I didn't forget to lock the door. Of the airplane down a little bit to intercept the altitude. Shout out to my buddy Galen for watching. Thank you, Galen, for supporting me. Thank you very much. We are this weekend I'm going up to Wisconsin Dells, so I decided to you know, do a flight to Wisconsin right before we leave, so that my 4.5 hour drive doesn't kill me. So yeah, shout out to my buddy for supporting me. Thanks a lot, man. I love you. You're like a brother. Right now we're tracking the Bravo Delta Foxtrot, or Bradford VOR. I'm going to make a right-hand turn here to intercept this a little better. I'm just going to very, very subtly bank it to the right. Nothing too major. Nothing too major. So we're watching this needle right here. This vertical needle right here is tracking my course. It's telling me right now I'm too far left. We're not too terribly left, but you know, we're still on course. Everything seems to be fine. Let's get our next VOR programmed into the aircraft here while we're in some smooth air and the airplane's stable. The next frequency we're going to tune to is 111.2. There's 111.2. It's in standby. We're not going to activate it yet. And our next course is going to be 003 degrees, basically straight north. Keep it at 5,500 feet to not break any FAA rules. We're flying in VFR, so we're going to be at altitudes of, in increments of 500 feet. We're going to be at odd altitudes such as 4,500, 5,500. We could go up to 6,500. We could drop down to 3,500. We want to make sure we're at something 500 feet for VFR operation here. So we are getting really close to the VOR. As you can see, it says we're way to the right now. Go ahead and start a turn to the north. Once my aircraft instruments read we are past the Bradford VOR, we will set our radios up and get our new course in. Confirm on the GPS we are still on track. In real life I would have some VFR charts with me and I'd be following certain towers like this one right below us here. It's about to come off the window frame here. We would be able to see a tower on the chart. Like that particular tower right there would be charted. We would be able to follow this on the charts. Because this is a flight sim, I do not have said chart. So we're using the GPS here. We have passed the Bradford VOR, which is why this white triangle is on the bottom here. So let's go ahead and tune the radio frequency and get our course in here for 003 degrees. Now, we are not within range of the new VOR yet. We will fly our northbound heading. We could track opposite course from the Bradford VOR. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to fly north since we're under VFR. And eventually we will pick up that VOR and it'll give us our course information and all that. Let's tune my heading selector to 003 degrees. Shout out to Galen's dad for giving me shit for the last flight I did. Kudos, kudos. Hopefully I'm not catching too much flack from him this time. This seems like a pretty good flight in my opinion so far. Looks like we've hit another thermal, so the airplane's wanting to climb again. Just kind of trimming the nose down to keep her where I need her. Once we get up closer to Chicago, I'm probably going to request flight following, even on the simulator, just because it's a more congested area. I'd like air traffic help under those conditions, so that air traffic knows we are in the vicinity and doing VFR flying. Messing with the lights on the airplane. no big deal. This is one of the more longer legs on our journey. As you can see, this is going to take us as soon as that screen loads. Let's see if we can't fiddle with the pilot here. We need to turn the autopilot master on. As you can see, our turn coordinator is our autopilot. I'm only going to run on autopilot for a short period of time. I just kind of want to brush up on the autopilot system itself. And we'll take that time while I'm messing with the autopilot and the autopilot's engaged. We'll take that time to look at some of the scenery around us and enjoy some of the aircraft and stuff. It looks like we have picked up our Papa Lima Lima VOR now. I can't confirm that in this gauge. We got that white triangle telling us it's in front of us, not behind us, no longer the red flag. So that's good. Looks like I need to trim the airplane out a little more. Got altitude hold on and heading indicator. So it's going to track my heading bug here. And it's going to hold approximately 5,500 feet, which is great. Just want me to trim down a little bit, so we'll trim the aircraft down like it says. That's what that little horn was. Little horn's telling me to trim down. Make a slight left-hand turn here, 350 degrees, so that we can track our needle here. I like to track that needle as best as I can, remain accurate. Enjoy some of the scenery and the shadows and all of that. Some of the immersion factor I have implemented into my simulator. Let's talk about graphics settings, because I know a lot of people look up other people's graphics settings on Flight Simulator X, or the Steam edition of that, or Prepared 3D. They are very similar. Wants me to trim down some more. Let's trim it down. Might have hit a thermal, which is why it was doing that. Back to the graphics settings for my Orbix. I wanted a few more frames per second. My system is capable of running higher auto-gen settings. However, I turned the auto-gen down to what is normal on the sliders so that I get a few extra frames per second in that regard. As we track this VOR here, we're going to turn to the right. What that allowed me to do was turn things on like cloud shadows, like this cloud right above us producing a shadow on the ground. That, for me, adds immersion into the simulator. And if I can become more immersed, then it can feel more real. Why in the world? Want me to trim up? Give her a little bit of the up trim there. A couple more clicks of trim up. So this autopilot is an autopilot, don't get me wrong, but it requires a little more attention than other autopilot systems. Now, with that being said, that buzzer you hear is the autopilot telling me it needs some trim help with the aircraft, and I just, you know, trim it slightly in the direction it tells me to, and then that's how that works. So we've got altitude hold on. I press the altitude hold switch down here to get that. If you press this button here, it changes from standard to heading lock, stuff like that. These two lights here for up and down trim. That horn that goes off will light up one of those two lights and tell me if we need a little bit more up trim or a little bit more down trim. I'm going to fly our assigned course 003 degrees, almost straight north, because we have intercepted our needle here for the most part. It's still telling me I'm slightly to the right, but we're only slightly to the right. It's going to get us to our destination nonetheless. Go ahead and check our instruments. Once my left tank drops to about 14 gallons or so, we'll switch it back to the right tank just to keep the airplane balanced and flyable. Getting a little choppy here. We got some cloud layer above us. Looks like an overcast cloud layer above us. We want to stay out of those clouds. We're flying VFR. I don't have air traffic help with me. So we do want to stay out of those clouds. We want to be able to see. As we get closer to our destination here, the weather's going to get a little worse. Might be a little more choppy as we get closer to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, just north of where we're landing, seem to have some pretty severe thunderstorm cells at a few of the airports and stuff. We should be landing in VFR conditions. Once we get to our destination, it should still be VFR. If it is not VFR by the time we get to our destination, we will have to divert to another airport so that we can land safely. And that is a practice that is done in real life as well, especially for a pilot that's not IFR certified. You don't want to fly into IMC conditions, as that could be a very, very big day ruiner. You can see here that there's quite a bit of turbulence going on. Quite a bit of turbulence going on, actually. I might Might descend here a little bit. Let's see what airports are around us, see if we can pick up on an ATIS frequency. Little bouncy. This would, to say the least, be an uncomfortable ride right now. Make a slight turn to the right as we are a little left on our intended course here. Let's see if Kilo Sierra Quebec India has a weather service we can listen to. Oh, they do.
Kilo Sierra Quebec India automated weather observation 2117 Zulu. Wind 242 at 6. Visibility greater than 20 miles. Sky condition, few clouds at 4,800, feeling 7,000, overcast. Temperature 22 Celsius. Dew point 11 Celsius. Altimeter 2998. Kilo Sierra Quebec India automated weather observation 2117 Zulu. Wind 242 at 6. Janesville Airport information, Mike 2118 Zulu, wind 213. Charlie 09er, automated weather up E2.
Oh, good
VFR
Lord.
aircraft stage.
Okay, thank you. Now that we're not tuning to some random ATIS frequencies, airplane was asking for a little bit of nose-up trim. A little bit of nose up, a little bit more nose up. Up trim she's wanting. Looks like we are right at the bottom of the cloud layer here. Let's check our fuel gauge. Okay. Let's go ahead and switch this back to the right tank. Pull from the right tank for a moment. Chicago is way over there. We are actually so clear of Chicago airspace, I'm actually not going to do the flight following idea as mentioned before. And while this air is turbulent, autopilot engaged here, probably disconnect it here in just a moment. Bouncy. Bouncy, bouncy now. Getting to that weather cell and everything, so it's going to be quite bouncy. Look out over the dash here, enjoy the colors of all the trees. Got a little airport right there. As we're bouncing along in the sky. Looks like we're starting to get into some smoother air again. And we are way right of our designated flight course. We are 2 miles out of the Papa Lima Lima VOR, so we need to tune the radio, get it ready for the next leg, which is actually 114.3, and that'll be at a course of 0 to 5 degrees north. Grass field down there. Once our VOR, we are in the cone, so to speak, now of the VOR. And we have since passed it. Let's tune to the next one. Course of 025. Once the airplane levels out here, we're going to switch back to manual flight. Gonna check our fuel gauges, looking good. We can see what appears to be a power plant off here in the distance. Sorry about the texture issues, don't know why they're freaking out. Let's go ahead and disengage the autopilot, turn the autopilot master off, and fly the airplane by hand. A little turbulent, but that's alright. We'll make it. About 105 nautical miles left in the flight. On our way to Juliet Victor Lima VOR. Again, radio frequency 114.3, course 025 degrees. Bouncy still, but we're making it. Now we just kind of relax, monitor the gauges, things of that nature. Keep an eye out for other aircraft because we're flying VFR. Make sure we're not going to run into anybody, or nobody's going to run into us That would be a day ruiner. That would ruin your doggone day. So far, everything's looking good in the green. Don't have any issues. Got about 25.9 nautical miles to go. About 12 minutes to our next VOR. According to my little instrument right here, or DME. 122 knots across the ground. We'll get there in about 12 minutes. So far, everything's going pretty good. tank reaches about 10 gallons, we will switch it to the left again. Got the sun right out behind us. So far, everything's going good. Got good cruise. The engine still sounds healthy. We have no indications of it running rough. The true test will be landing this puppy. I haven't done too many landings in this aircraft, so we'll see how the landing goes. I hope it ain't too gusty on final. Looks like we are about to cross over into Wisconsin. Chicago right off of our right wingtip there. I know at the beginning of the video I said I wasn't going to use autopilot, but bathroom break kind of debunked that one. It's about the only time you can really stop and enjoy the scenery, otherwise I kind of got to monitor aircraft systems, watch for traffic, that whole shebang. We've got about 8.5 nautical miles to go before we get to the next VOR, which is Mike Sierra November. Let's go ahead and tune the radios in for that. We're looking for 108.6. I'm going to leave that in the standby, and our course for that one is going to be 341 degrees. Once we cross the Mike Sierra November VOR, we will descend to approximately 2,500 feet, and we'll fly 2,500 feet for the rest of the leg to our last VOR of Delta Lima Lima, which is going to get us to the airport. It's going to get us right above the airport, basically. It's actually just north of the airport, which is fine. We'll fly to that VOR and intercept it, and get ourselves on an approach for the runway. If the weather has stayed similar when I did my weather report, we will be doing the southbound runway as wind was coming in from the north, so we'll want to land slightly south. Little bit of turbulence here, getting choppy real bad. My girlfriend at this stage in the flight would be grabbing the barf bag. Me, on the other hand, would be smiling the whole time because there is nothing in this world, nothing, no vacation, no drug, no nothing can do what aviation does for me. So I would be happy just being in the sky. For those of you that have been up into a small airplane, you know the feeling that I'm talking about. The aviation bug, so to speak. It's unlike anything you've ever done. I find myself on the ground always looking up. Always looking up. I don't like having my feet planted on the ground. I'm happier in the air. Believe it or not. We're actually in some cloud layer right now, so we're actually going to descend slightly sooner than what I said. Now we are to the left of our intended flight plan here, but that is alright. We're going to take her down to about 3,500 RP, or 3,500 feet on the altimeter altitude indicator there. I'm just going to throttle down a little bit to drop the nose down. Let the airplane kind of fall by itself. I'll just add a little bit of back pressure here to ensure we don't drop like a rock, and that we stay around the same cruise speed as I had wanted. Get out of that cloud layer here. Descending past 5,000 feet now. Take her down about 3,500. Sounds like some thunderstorms in the vicinity. As a pilot, we don't want to fly in that. We are past that VOR, so let's go ahead and track the other. Course 341 degrees. Heading indicator, we'll tune it to 341 as well. And we're going to make a descending right-hand turn as we continue our descent down to 3,500. Passing 4,000 feet. Go ahead and get our cruise speed set. RPM set again. Slowly descends so that we intercept 3,500 feet. We are tracking our VOR. It looks like I need to make a right-hand turn here slightly. Level her off here at about 3,500. Keep a very close eye on this weather. Very close eye on the weather. Ourselves out of that cloud layer, so some developing thunderstorms around us here. We may be diverting, may have to divert about 30 miles, 30 nautical miles to our VOR, about 14-minute flight time. Back down into smooth air again here, not in that cloud layer. We hit precipitation, that's okay. What I don't want to hit is extremely low visibility. Just about a half tank on the right wing fuel tank. Once we get to about a half tank, we'll switch to the left hand. We should be able to land on the left tank. By the time we get to the airport, I'm hoping it'll be balanced out fuel tank wise. We just don't want a large difference between the two. That would make for a very, very challenging landing. Let's try and pull up some ATIS that's in front of us here. Get in touch with Kilo Mike Sierra November. Visibility's still good though, so we'll hold this flight flat. Actually, I need to make a right-hand turn here. I need to set the autopilot again. Hallelujah. Track that heading bug real quick. I kind of made it freak out for a second when I set it and then adjusted it. Increase our mixture just a little bit because we've descended.
Airport information, India 2200 Zulu, wind 356 at 6, visibility greater than 20 miles, in light rain, sky conditions, few clouds at 1,500, ceiling 2,800, broken, temperature 17, dew point 14, altimeter 2995, ILS, runway 36, landing and departing, runway 36. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have India. Madison Airport information. India 2200 Zulu. Wind 356 at 6. Visibility greater than 20 miles in light rain. Janesville Airport information. Sierra 2201 Zulu. Wind 223. at 10, visibility great.
Okay, so here comes the rain. Precipitation's alright as long as we can see. out of the cloud. We're just in the cloud. No deal. Excellent. Rain has stopped. Good. Keep her about 3,000 and keep it in the looks like we're past the thunderstorms. Very bad thunderstorm. Precipitation. Cloud. It's alright.
Lima, automated weather observation, 2214 Zulu, wind 0, niner 3 at 4, visibility greater than 20 miles, sky condition feeling 3000 overcast, temperature 15 Celsius, dew point 14 Celsius,
See, this is kind of shit
altimeter
that pisses me off.
niner 5.
Why the fuck is there water everywhere else but these
weather
random
observation.
spots?
2214 Zulu. Wind 0.
I have it all. Open LLC, North America, and global.
Delta Lima, traffic, Hyper, November 3572 Tango is 14 miles southeast, 3,200, inbound to land, runway 1.
intercept the localizer of runway 010 and follow it down to the runway. About 8 miles out.
Kilo Delta Lima, traffic, Hyper November 3572 Tango is 8 miles southeast, 3,300, inbound to land, runway 1.
Lights are on. Let's get this beast on the ground.
Piper November 3572 Tango is on final runway 1 to land.
Get lined up with the center line of the runway. We should see this Neo move to the center. If I have my radios set properly. They're telling me I'm right now. It leads me to believe everything is set pretty kosher. There it goes. It's starting to try to get down. And a successful landing. that's legit. This airport's got a dirt and paved surface. Now it's runway that's dirt. All right.